there. Good morning, Earthlings. How you doing? Welcome to First Contact Radio. Let's jump into our space weather for today. All right, we have our solar wind. It's moving along. It's picked up speed, 443.9 kilometers per second. Was a little bit higher yesterday during the course of the day. Our planetary K index, you could see, is up to a 3. Yesterday it had gone up to a 4 at one point. We're at a 3, and it's remaining quiet for the moment. Remember, we did get hit by that flare the other day, so there could be more activity from this. Our chance of having an X-class flare, very, very minimal, and an M-class flare, about a 10% chance. And anything else we need to be aware of today? Just like I was saying, NOAA forecasters estimate a 10% chance of M-class solar flares today. The probable source would be a sunspot 1361, which is directly facing the Earth. And let's see here what we got here. There's only one place in the Earth where northern lights routinely shine down on a pink flamingo. Summit Station, Greenland. Alright, interesting looking picture of an aurora that took place. And you saw this one there. So there you go. That's our space weather for today. Dirk Bradshaw is with us with a story about the Fed. Dirk, over to you.
Hey there, boys and girls. It is time for the Cosmic News with Dirk Bradshaw. I am Dirk Bradshaw, and tonight, the first ever Government Accountability Office audit of the Federal Reserve was carried out in the past few months due to the Ron Paul Alan Grayson Amendment to the Dodd-Frank bill, which passed last year. Jim DeMint, a Republican senator, and Bernie Sanders, an independent senator, led the charge for a Federal Reserve audit in the Senate, but watered down the original language of the House Bill H.R. 1207 so that the complete audit would not be carried out. Ben Bernanke, Alan Greenspan, and various other bankers vehemently opposed the audit and lied to Congress about the effects an audit would have on markets. Nevertheless, you are about to hear the results of the first audit in the Federal Reserve's nearly 100-year history. Stay tuned. You're definitely going to want to know this.
And if you ask our leaders today, this is what they will say. I can neither confirm or deny. I can neither confirm or deny. I can neither confirm or deny. What's up with their lives?
Since 1954, it has been illegal to audit the Federal Reserve, which is not federal and has no reserve. But, during the last congressional session, Congress somehow managed to get an amendment added to a bill that took a peek at the Federal Reserve's finances. The results are more than revealing. Two separate bills in the House and Senate, sponsored by two of the last honest legislators we have in Congress, Senator Bernie Sanders and Independent and Republican Ron Paul, were the true patriots that initiated this audit. The first ever Government Accountability Office carried out the audit of the Federal Reserve that has taken place in the past few months. They had to water down the original language of the House bill so that a complete audit would not be carried out. Ben Bernanke, Alan Greenspan, and various other bankers vehemently opposed the audit and threatened Congress about the effects an audit would have on markets. The fear-mongering they had warned about was proven to be false, just like the threat back in 2008, when those in Congress, who had voted no against the bailout bill at first, were then told that martial law would occur on Monday, if it wasn't passed that Friday night. To be fair, I can understand why the Federal Reserve said an audit of itself would be very painful for the markets as a whole. They did not want the public to find what they had secretly already loaned out. What they either forgot or failed to realize is the fact that the mainstream media did not cover the audit, and if it's not reported, then it's as if it never happened. Some startling findings of a top-to-bottom audit of the Fed are the following. The Central Bank of the United States has dished out a whopping $16 trillion in 0% interest-free secret loans to bail out American and foreign banks. Of the $16.1 trillion loaned out, over $3 trillion went to financial institutions in the UK, Germany, Switzerland, France and Belgium. Additionally, swap arrangements were opened with banks in the UK, Canada, Brazil, Japan, South Korea, Norway, Mexico, Singapore and Switzerland. 12 of those arrangements are still ongoing, having been extended through August 2012. That's right, tens of trillions of dollars were printed, created, or digitally transferred and given to the banks without our knowledge. Let's try placing $16 trillion into perspective. The gross domestic product, or GDP, is the market value of all final goods and services produced in the United States in a given period, and it is $14.12 trillion or $2 trillion less. The entire national debt of the United States government, spanning its more than 200-year history, is $14.5 trillion and also $2 trillion less. We could have paid our debt off, or given everyone a year's salary. Instead, the Fed gave $3 trillion to foreign banks. The annual budget that was being debated so heavily in Congress and the Senate concerning the debt ceiling was around the same amount given to foreign banks at $3.5 trillion. As a component of the government's measures to address the subprime mortgage crisis, then-President George W. Bush signed into law on October 3, 2008 the TARP, Troubled Asset Relief Program. Subsequently, loans of $800 billion were given apparently to failing banks and companies. Senator Sanders went on to say, that was a blatant lie, considering the fact that Goldman Sachs alone received $814 billion. As it turns out, the Federal Reserve donated $2.5 trillion to Citigroup, while Morgan Stanley also received over $2. The Royal Bank of Scotland and Deutsche Bank, a German bank, also split about $1 trillion. As a result of this audit, we now know that the Federal Reserve provided more than $16 trillion in total financial assistance to some of the largest financial institutions and corporations in the United States and throughout the world. End quote. Sanders, in a posting on the web on July 21, 2011, also said that this is a clear case of socialism for the rich and rugged, you're on your own individualism for everyone else. No agency of the United States government should be allowed to bail out a foreign bank or corporation without the direct approval of Congress and the President. He also went on to say, the nonpartisan, investigative arm of the U.S. Congress also determined that the Fed lacks a comprehensive system to deal with conflicts of interest, despite the serious potential for abuse. In fact, according to the report, the Fed provided conflict of interest waivers to employees and private contractors, so they could keep investments in the same financial institutions and corporations that were given emergency loans. For example, the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase served on the New York Fed's board of directors at the same time that his bank received more than $390 billion in financial assistance from the Fed. Moreover, J.P. Morgan Chase served as one of the clearing banks for the Fed's emergency lending programs. In another disturbing finding, the Government Accountability Office said that on September 19, 2008, William Dudley, who is now the New York Fed president, was granted a waiver to let him keep investments in AIG and General Electric at the same time they were given bailout funds. One reason the Fed did not make Dudley sell his holdings, according to the audit, was that it might have created the appearance of a conflict of interest. To Sanders, the conclusion is simple. No one who works for a firm receiving direct financial assistance from the Fed should be allowed to sit on the Fed's board of directors or be employed by the Fed. A more detailed investigation into potential conflicts of interest at the Fed is due out on October 18, but Sanders said one thing already is abundantly clear. The Federal Reserve must be reformed to serve the needs of working families, not just CEOs on Wall Street. When you have conservative Republican stalwarts like Jim DeMint and Ron Paul, as well as self-identified Democratic socialists like Bernie Sanders, all fighting against the Federal Reserve, you know that it is no longer an issue of liberal versus conservative. When you have every single member of the Republican Party in Congress, and progressive congressmen like Dennis Kucinich, sponsoring a bill to audit the Federal Reserve, you realize that the Federal Reserve is an entity unto itself, which has no oversight and no accountability. The Fed doesn't have a requirement to comply with the recommendations, but its political position and independence are not exactly secure at the moment. Too big to fail should actually be too rich to fail. As Americans continue to get crushed for speculating on housing and the stock bubble, then the elite get us to pay for their losses. This kleptocracy is a way of life, and if the American people understood the entire scope of this perverse crime, there would be revolution in the morning. And not just here in America, this money went all over the world to prop up the United Banking Cartel. The world is enslaved by debt and the wars they fund. We deserve better than this. We really do. Whatever happens today at Jackson Hole with Ben Bernanke will surely rock the markets either way, but how long do we allow this to happen is up to us. So until next week, tell everyone you know that it's the United Banking Cartel versus us, not me versus you, for we are the many, and they are the few.
Well, I see the fat lady is getting off the stage, and she's looking right at me. I've got to take her home and put her to bed. I hate goodbyes, so instead I'm going to say, until we meet again. I'm Dirk Bradshaw for the Cosmic News Network. I return you now to Joshua Poet and First Contact. They're all yours, Josh. This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk, thank you very much. This is the UFO News, and I've got 4 good stories for you today. First story comes to us from educatinghumanity.com. Story says, Coast UFO account baffles experts. See, you got the building here. It's shaped like a UFO in the background. Says, the caption on the picture says, Martin Gothschall keeps an eye out for close encounters. All right, it's light, Jim, but not as we know it. The Gold Coast hinterland this month was the setting for the state's premier alien hunters are calling one of the strangest UFO sightings on record. Queensland UFO Research Center is investigating an anonymous report from a local resident about a 3-hour close encounter of the first kind in the skies above the city on November 18th. The Friday night started out like any other when the Varsity Lakes woman went outside for a cigarette and observed the Leonid meteor shower. After counting more than 18 of the celestial objects, she noted a large light in the northern sky, which she said was strobing and flashing. Just moments later, the object was joined by 2 other lights to create a triangular formation, which she says was both red and silver in color. The report shows the objects performed impossible maneuvers in the sky and would sparkle as they moved through the clouds, creating an atmospheric phenomenon. The woman finally went into her house after being bitten by mosquitoes. It is understood she was not probed by or had any contact with the object. The research center's Dr. Martin Goschall said the typical UFO encounter lasted mere seconds. Color changes are normal, especially when UFOs use clouds as covers while they conduct surveillance. He said people should keep a camera with them at all times. If they see something unusual, it could be a rewarding experience. So there you go. Interesting experience there from Queensland. All right. Our next story comes to us from Roger Marsh, who is writing to us from the US UFO Digest. A low-flying formation of lights was observed over PA in 2 locations. All right. A group of troopers, PA witnesses, report watching between 8 to 12 lights moving in formation at what appeared to be 500 to 1,000 feet, according to November 29, 2011 testimony from the Mutual UFO Network Witness Reporting Database. One adult witness called the other 5 adults and 2 children outside to observe the objects moving overhead, bright yellow-white lights. We observed them for about 5 minutes until they flew out of sight, the reporting witness stated. I even went into the backyard where there was no noise and cut my ear to the sky as the last one passed, so there was still no sound at all. A 911 dispatch operator told the witness that another report described the same objects came from Willow Grove. No photos or videos of the event were provided with the MUFON report, which was filed on November 29th. The event occurred on the 25th of November. Trooper is a census-designated area in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. Population 5,744. All right, there's our sighting over Pennsylvania. Moving right along, we're now going to go to Denver, Colorado. These bright objects were seen and recorded hovering in the night sky in Denver, Colorado on Monday, the 28th. So just the other day. Let's take a look at what was seen.
Something pretty weird. You may have seen my UFO video, and I just got another one here. I'm gonna try and show you this before it disappears again. All right, you're gonna see two lights. Now watch them closely. There's no strings attached here, okay? No tricks. This is just me and my camera.
All right, we got a couple lights right out there.
Now what is that? Or what are those?
Alright, we're going to zip ahead. Alright, there you go. That was a report from Danny out in Colorado. You see the two lights up there in the sky. And our last story comes to us from Canoga Park, California. This is from the UFO Digest. Dick Vanderplug. Back years ago, around 1972 to 73, living in Canoga Park, California, I saw a UFO that moved slowly over the house. Because I was only 5 years old, I thought that it might have been a dream, but later confirmed this with my mother. Here's exactly what happened. Late that night, I didn't know the time, I saw a light shine through the window toward my mother. I slept away from the window next to my mother. I called out Mom, but she didn't answer, and I wondered what the light was, so I hopped off the bed and went to the window to see what was beaming that strong. It was like a stage floodlight. When I got to the window, I saw a very big circular object with 3 lights on the bottom facing me. Strange, though there was no sound from it, it moved very quietly. When it was at the window, I called on my mother's name a few more times, but she did not react. Then the object moved right over the house. Then, years later, when I was 8, the movie Close Encounter of the Third Kind came out, and I told my mother I thought I saw a UFO beam a light on her and slowly move over the house. My mother then told me she saw the same thing, but when the light shined on her, she got paralyzed. She said she couldn't move and afterwards didn't remember anything at all. So I figured it couldn't have been a dream if my mother also saw the same thing at around the same time and place. Now that I'm over 40 years old, I still remember the whole situation very clearly, and sometimes I wonder if it was at all a dream, especially that the UFO didn't make any sound. But my mother still confirms that this really happened, so I guess I really saw a UFO. I still wonder what was done to my mother when the light beam froze her, but nothing seems abnormal. Another strange incident happened to my brother and sister. Claimed they heard some strange noise, that they had never heard of something flying nearby the house in Canoga Park, but I'm not sure if that was the same night that my mother and I saw something. Well, that's my UFO story. So there you go. That comes to us from UFO Digest. All these stories are available on our site, so you can go check them out yourself. And there you go. Let me jump away to a song. It's called Wake Up. I'll be back.
What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of them.
9/11 was an inside job. Kennedy was killed by the CIA. Jimmy Carter saw a UFO. Answers to secrets you need to know. So wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Patriots arise. It's time to demand the truth.
All right, very good. The song's called Wake Up. You can download it absolutely free. FirstContactRadio.com. You'll see it right there. Free download. Wake Up. It's a wake-up call for all patriots. And I know you're out there. And I'm not just talking about the football team, the Patriots. Okay. Monday and Tuesday, I played clips from about 9/11, connect the dots. I'm going to continue 9/11 until the criminals are put behind bars. Well, I'm going to keep playing 9/11 stuff on this show. And this next clip is from Firefighters for 9/11 Truth. I don't know if you're aware of this, but since 9/11 occurred, there's been a lot of organizations that have popped up that are giving information and explaining what really happened. Firefighters are one of those organizations. They were there in the midst of everything that went on during 9/11. We know the stories of them coming in and out of the buildings. We hear the stories of all of them that were trapped and unfortunately died. And then, of course, all the first responders that showed up after the buildings collapsed that were helping. Well, firefighters have seen things differently and have a different understanding of what went on. They know the truth. They know about the explosives in the building. They were there. This is from Firefighters for 911truth.org. And watch this, and I think you will find it fascinating if you already haven't seen it. And if you have, well, then it's a good refresher. I'll be back.
William Wagner here for We the People. For years, I have wondered why local fire chiefs and fire department people, even some that were at the cleanup at the World Trade Center, were afraid to come forward and say, something's very wrong with this non-investigation. Well, finally, a New York City fireman has stepped up to the plate with the backing of hundreds of other firemen who know that the federal government did not do a proper forensic investigation on the World Trade Center collapse, especially 7 World Trade Center, the 3rd building, which no plane hit. Here it is. Finally, Bush and Cheney will have to be held accountable, along with all the other federal people that helped them cover up what really happened on September 11, 2001. Listen carefully.
Thank you very much. And like Richard said, my name is Eric Lawyer, and I founded the Firefighters for 9/11 Truth after I watched Richard in one of his presentations, and I realized that something more had to be done. And I just want to thank Richard for everything he's doing here, and the Firefighters for 9/11 Truth strongly support Richard Gage and all the architects and engineers that have the courage to sign that petition. And I know from personal experience there's about 5 times as many out there that believe what we believe but don't have the courage to sign it. So what I'm hoping today is that people will find the courage after listening to this presentation and seeing everybody here and seeing that we are behind it. We also demand an investigation that follows the national standards and has contempt and subpoena powers. 9/11 was the greatest loss of life and property damage in U.S. fire history. This should have been the most protected, preserved, over-tested, and thorough investigation of a crime scene in world history. Sadly, it was not. What was it? Well, we know from their own admission the majority of the evidence was destroyed. Like Richard said, 22 years of experience. I've seen a lot of crime scenes. I've never seen anything like this in my life. I was out at the site. I saw trucks leaving faster than anywhere I've ever seen, but I accepted it at the time, and for years I accepted it because it was a recovery and rescue operation, and that's normal to have something like that going. Again, we've never seen anything like it, but that was expected. What I didn't know for years, what was going on behind the scenes, was that evidence was being destroyed when it was shipped off. By their own admission, Tower 7 investigation, this investigation at Tower 7 had no physical evidence. How do you investigate a crime when you've destroyed all the evidence? It doesn't make sense. They also admit that they refused to test the explosives or to test for explosives or residue of thermite. Now, this is what I'm going to go into here just real quickly, is there are national standards for an investigation. That's what all of us are asking for, an investigation that follows national standards and holds people accountable. This manual right here, just so you can see it, is what we call the kind of the Fire Investigation 101. This is the most basic fire investigation manual there. This is for the 2001 edition. This is what should have been referred to, at least. It doesn't have to be followed exactly, but it should have been used as a guideline for the investigation. I'm just going to cover a few of the things that are in here. So NIST violated, and the initial investigators that did not protect the scene violated the most basic of the guidelines. And I'm going to cover 5 of them here. One is the NFPA 9.3.6. It covers spoliation of evidence. Specifically what it reads is once evidence has been removed from the scene, it should be maintained and not destroyed or altered until the investigation is complete. The steel was melted down prior to the investigation. We know that from their own admission. This is no conspiracy theory stuff. 19.2.4, exotic accelerants. If on the scene you find melted steel or concrete, you should consider the use of exotic accelerants. And they specifically say in the manual, thermite mixtures produce exceedingly hot fires that can account for melted steel and concrete. It also says they leave residues that can be tested for visually and chemically identifiable. Again, they did not test for it. And just put it in perspective, on a routine house fire, if we suspect even the slightest use of an accelerant, we're going to test for it when there's no fatalities, when there's very little property damage. So to not do it on this, there is absolutely no excuse. I can't drive that point home enough. 18.15 is analyze fuel source. All available fuel sources should be considered and eliminated until one fuel can be identified as meeting all the physical damage criteria. For example, if you find pulverized concrete, which we all know there was in all 3 buildings, there was pulverized concrete, the only fuels that can create seeded explosions should be considered. So they shouldn't be considering fires. They shouldn't be doing that. It doesn't account for pulverized concrete. They should only be considering exotic accelerants and explosives. 19.4.8.2.6, extremism. The terrorist may include fire as but one of a variety of weapons along with explosives used in furthering his or her goal. We know they used them in '93. Why would we not test for them now? There was reports that day, multiple reports, which I'll get into in a second. So they could have put them in the basement. How do we know that unless we test for it? I mean, even if it is the terrorists that they claim they are, we need to test this. 14.3, preservation of the fire scene and physical evidence. We find the following. The cause of a fire explosion is not known until near the end of the investigation. The entire fire scene should be considered physical evidence and should be protected and preserved. It's just over and over. There's so many. You can go to our website, the Firefighters for 9/11 Truth. We have many more of these actual chapters that cover what they should have done that they did not do. So now, by their own admission, in all 3 building collapses, NIST refused to physically test, like Dr. Stephen Jones did, for explosives. This is just unbelievable. And here are their excuses, and I quote, "It is unlikely that 100 pounds of thermite or more could have been carried into World Trade Center 7 and placed around columns without being detected, either prior to September 11th or during that day." So again, I've been on a lot of fire scenes, and I've seen a lot of investigations, and why would we not test because something's hard to do? That's the exact reason you need to investigate it. If that was hard to do, we need to find out how they did it. And number 2, NIST excuse. In addition, no blast sounds were heard on the audio tracks of the video recordings during the collapse of World Trade Center 7 or reported by witnesses. That's one of the excuses why they didn't test. Well, apparently they didn't read Chapter 18. 18 is the general definition of explosions. Although an explosion is almost always accompanied by the production of a loud noise, the noise itself is not, in big bold letters, an essential element in the definition of an explosion. The generation and violent escape of gases are the primary criteria of an explosion. So that alone says they should have tested for it. But then we also, NIST has lied, and we can prove it as soon as the new investigation happens. So the evidence is out there for you to see right now. We have 118 first responders who reported explosions. We have the radio transmissions from FDNY members that are still recorded today that reported explosions. We have audio recordings. We have video recordings. I've personally talked to witnesses that heard them. So there's nothing short of saying they lied, and they need to be held accountable. And besides that, like I said, there is no excuse for not testing for explosives. And so at the very least, at the very best, even if you want to believe the official story, this was the most incompetent investigation of all time. And I've talked to a lot of investigators that were there, and I asked them the specific question, why did they refuse to test? They weren't the ones who refused, but NIST did. And they said all we can say, all they can answer is incompetence, or they tell me to shut up. They cannot give me any reason that follows national standards. So, but the reality, after all the research everybody here and the incredible people we're in the room with today have done, the reality is it was a criminal investigation to cover up the crime. So, just to finish, I'd like to read a quote. This is from a retired, decorated FDNY lieutenant. Anyone who knows the fire service, he is a stud. He worked on Ladder Company 26, Rescue Company 3, Rescue Company 1 in his career. Anyone who knows, those are amazing companies. Here's his comment. Trade Tower 7 by itself is the smoking gun, not hit by an aircraft with only a few relatively small fires. It came down in a classic crimp and implosion, going straight into its basement, something only very precise demolitions can accomplish, which takes days, if not weeks, to prepare. The 9/11 Commission didn't even mention it, and FEMA actually stated they didn't know why it collapsed and left it at that. Brothers, I know that the above implications are hard, almost unthinkable, but the official explanation is utter nonsense, and 343 of our murdered brothers are crying out for justice. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, that's the big thing. The murdered brothers are crying out for justice. And the only way they're going to get to justice is if they actually, people actually start understanding what they're saying and pay attention. All right, our next bit of information takes us to Iran. And as you can see here, that there's a second Iranian nuclear facility has exploded as diplomatic tensions rise between the West and Tehran. An Iranian nuclear facility has been hit by a huge explosion. The second such blast in a month, prompting speculation that Tehran's military and atomic sites are under attack. Satellite imagery, seen by the Times, confirmed that a blast that rocked the site of Isfahan on Monday struck the uranium enrichment facility there, despite denials by Tehran. The images clearly showed billowing smoke and destruction, negating Iranian claims yesterday that no such explosion had taken place. Israeli intelligence officers told the Times that there was no doubt that the blast struck the nuclear facilities at Isfahan and that there was no accident, or it was no accident. The explosion in Iran's third largest city came as satellite images emerged of the damage caused by one at a military base outside Tehran 2 weeks ago that killed about 30 members of the Revolutionary Guard, including General Hassan Moghadam, the head of the Iranian missile defense program. Iran claimed that Tehran's explosion occurred during testing on the new weapon systems designed to strike at Israel, but several Israeli officers have confirmed that the blast was intentional and part of an effort to target Iran's nuclear weapons program. As you can see, there's more to the article, but it's linked up to the page. You can check it out, read further on that story. Now, here we have a story over at InfoWars talking about the Department of Homeland Security and their coordination to crack down these protests in the various cities. It goes on to say, I know this is supposed to be a dead subject, but look what I found in 10 minutes of research today. The man acknowledged to be the facilitator of the mayor's conference calls is one Chuck Wexler. Chuck is the executive director of PERF, of which we were informed. What wasn't included in mixed is Mr. Wexler is also a member of the Department of Homeland Security Advisory Council. You'll find his name a second on the bottom. We have the files and the links to there. If it's not good enough that Mr. Wexler was speaking with the mayor, don't take any word for it. There's probably dozens of links. Here's one that may be considered valid. CBS. In Mr. Wexler's interview with the Boston Phoenix, he has the following to say. It's as interesting for what's said and what isn't. Alright, no purpose aside to simply exchange information. This was just information sharing. There hasn't been any issue we haven't been involved in when speaking of other policing issues he's dealt with. We are pulled in to help when things happen, and we'll keep doing that when it's the right thing. Apparently the OWS movement doesn't count as when things happen. Oh, let's not forget about the arrest in Portland or what Wexler's boss had to say about this. We had to be careful not to allow this movement to get any legitimacy. I'm taking this seriously. I'm not old enough to remember what happened in the 60s when the left wing took the streets and somehow the media glorified them and then ended up shaping policy. We can't allow that to happen. Congressman Peter King, head of the Homeland Security Subcommittee. And So, Rexler's role in coordinating police crackdown does provide direct proof of Rick Ellis's claim. Got a link to this here. But since actions and decisions are often made through informal liaisons by people wearing several hats, DHS could have played a role in coordinating the crackdowns even if no DHS official was directly involved. Last night I probably watched for, I don't know, a good hour, 2 hours what was going on the Occupy LA. There's a good feed out there. I believe it is it's a gentleman out of Oakland. I'll find the link and I'll put it up for you. But it was pretty interesting. It was, a lot of waiting around for something to happen, and then finally, about a few minutes after midnight, the police came out there. They made their announcement. This was an unlawful assembly. You needed to move away. Some people stayed. Some people moved away. The protesters gathered together. They made a decision who was going to stay and stand in solidarity, and they did. And the police came in, and it was a peaceful movement and a peaceful protest, and there was no violence that took place that was shown, at least anything that I was watching, that people were challenging the police to be respectful, and the police were themselves being respectful as best as you would expect in a situation like that. It was kind of cool to see how the media was going around. There was a lot of media, and how they were really going around making sure that they filmed every one of the police. It was kind of like a reality show. Here you see all the police lined up for this movement into the park, and here were reporters and cameramen going by and filming them, reading off their badge, who they were. It's kind of like introducing the players before a game, and eventually they came in and they got the people out. They arrested a bunch of them. I think there was about 1,300 cops at the time, and they just came in, and it was real quick. But is that going to stop the movement? No, it's not going to stop the movement. These kind of things are only going to empower the movement, because the movement is not just about the people in one city. It's not just the people in all the cities. It's about all of the people in this country. That's what the movement is about. And little by little, I think that the police are getting it, because they are seeing what's going on. And when you have a city like Los Angeles where the police do behave a little bit differently than the other cities, you have to wonder, is this because Los Angeles is better than the other cities? Probably not. Maybe just Los Angeles has had more of an opportunity to see the mistakes all these other cities were making, and so by the time it got to LA, they knew a little bit more. They were a little bit smarter than the other police forces. So maybe that's why. I don't know, but I'm sure that more is going to pick up, and the movement is not going to die down just because of one small little crackdown. This movement is here to stay, my friends, because revolution is in the air. Heck, we're just about to hit 2012, and that's when we're told things are really going to get interesting. All right, our next story here comes to us. It says S&P downgrades top U.S. banks' credit ratings. Standard & Poor's Rating Services has lowered its credit ratings for many of the world's largest financial institutions, including the biggest banks in the U.S. Bank of America Corporation and its main subsidiaries are among the institutions whose ratings fell at least one notch Tuesday, along with Citigroup Incorporated, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan Chase, and Morgan Stanley Wells Fargo Company. S&P said the changes in 37 financial companies' ratings reflect the firm's new criteria for banks, and they incorporate shifts in the industry and the role of governments and central banks worldwide. The agency did not release its evaluation of each company, but said it plans to discuss the changes during a conference call early Wednesday. All right, so we're going to stay tuned, see what's going to go on with there, but it's good to see that banks, in at least some degree, are being held accountable for their actions. Now, there's a new, before we do that, let's check this story here. You heard about the bill that is, has the indefinite detention provision in it that is being discussed and argued about. We talked about it this week. This is Judge Napolitano talking about that very same issue.
Shopping and dining over Thanksgiving and maybe watching attendance of football games. Big government Republicans and Democrats were busy shredding the last vestiges of the Constitution. Senators John McCain and Carl Levin want to enact a law that would declare the entire United States of America a battlefield for the military. They're talking about inserting the Army into domestic law enforcement. Senator Lindsey Graham, who supports this bill, says, quote, "The homeland is part of the battlefield, and people can be held without trial, whether an American citizen or not." I guess he hasn't read the Constitution recently. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Douglas McGregor joins us now. Colonel McGregor, as always, welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Thanks, Judge.
I must tell you, I was utterly appalled when I saw this legislation proposed. We didn't learn about it until last night because the committee hearings on it were done in secret, even though the Constitution requires the Congress to do these things in public. And there were no actual hearings, just a bunch of members of the Senate who got together and wrote this thing. And it basically says the president can arrest whoever he wants anywhere in the United States of America and keep them without charging them with a crime, without letting them see a lawyer, without bringing them to a judge for as long as he wants. How is that consistent with the Constitution?
Well, Judge, you're the legal expert, but whenever you suspend due process, which in effect suspends the rule of law, you walk down a very dangerous path and you give authority to your government that it can then wield essentially without restraint. What worries me is that we'll end up creating categories of people who are then subject to arbitrary arrest. And that's dangerous because we don't know how those categories will be defined or interpreted in the future. All in all, it's a disaster, and it's something that should be defeated.
You have spent a career in the military. You're also an expert in political science, particularly with respect to its relationship to the military. Do you see a role for the military in domestic law enforcement? Do you see American troops, young men and women, arresting other Americans because the president doesn't like what they've said?
I certainly hope not. And I can tell you that having served in the regular armed forces, people in the regular Army and Marine Corps have no interest in participating in those kinds of events. I'm sure there are some narrow purposes to which the military could be put to good use. I mean, clearly, if you're dealing with paramilitary drug lords and mafias on your soil, you may need the assistance of the military. But other than that, I can't conceive of any sort of circumstances that would justify this legislation.
All right, switching gears.
Okay, now the good news is this bill was turned down. Let's see here. I believe it was 61 to... Let's see, it showed in here. It says update. The bill was turned down. Voting it down was 61 against and 37 traitors with it. 37 traitors should be charged with treason. That is true. So we need to find out the names of these 37 individuals who thought this bill was a good idea, and we need to hold them accountable for their actions, because that's treacherous, treasonous activity they want to do against the American people. That's not right. Okay, one story we haven't done in a while is about what's going on out there with the New Madrid fault line and the floods that took place along the Mississippi and the Missouri rivers. Here is, remember Bird's Point levee? It was the levee that was blown right at the very beginning when we started hearing about the flooding taking place. Well, this is something recent that is going on with the Bird's Point levee. Here we go.
In East Prairie tonight, where many people from the floodway took shelter while their houses were flooded. And Holly, will the Corps meet its deadline?
Jeff, in short, no. According to the Corps, current weather is the problem. Now, the upper crevasse and lower crevasse are at 51 feet, but the middle one still needs work. None of the three blast sites are at 55 feet. Now, here is the section that we shot earlier today, the center crevasse, where I'm told they still have several feet of levee to fill in, but I'm told if they have a couple of good working days with better weather than we're seeing now, they could be up to 51 feet by the weekend and 55 feet by early December. Now, it's the upper crevasse, the site of the first blast, that concerns farmers the most. They want that area up to 55 feet or more as soon as possible. Engineers tell me that area will take the longest because they have the most levee to work on, 9,000 feet of repair, and with this weather, it's hard to pin down a timeline. Eventually, it will be too cold to work. Now, for farmers and county leaders, they say it's more than frustrating, it's scary. That's because they feel current rainfall and flood stages could already mean trouble.
another 2 or 3 weeks, this could really turn into a big mess. Yeah, and it would be worse this time around than the first time because, if it tops the levees now, it will top a lot more water volume at one time versus when they blew it.
We've just finished spending all this money fixing, everything that was done from the flood, the previous flood in May. And if this river comes up and breaches these short levees now, we're going to be doing this all over again.
Now, Corps representatives tell me they would fight floodwaters up to 55 feet should the river threaten. Again, they hope to get back to work as soon as possible. Remember, once funding is approved, the plan is to take the levee back up to 62.5 feet. Back out here live, farmers tell me they will rest easier as soon as that happens. Live local late breaking in Mississippi County. Holly Brantley, Heartland News.
Okay, if you remember, it was the Birds Point levee where we first heard about the explosion that was taking place that the Army Corps of Engineers was doing, and it was after that when all of the flooding really got to be much worse than it had been prior to that. So maybe they came in to do some good, but it certainly seems like they instigated a lot more of a problem than there was. Okay, next, a new Earth was discovered. That's right, a new Earth. Let's find out about that.
Finding life in outer space. Scientists say they discovered a planet with the most Earth-like environment they have ever seen, about 123 short trillion miles away. Oh, come on. And it's smack dab in the middle of a place that could support intelligent life. Michio Kaku, physics professor, City University here in New York, and author of the Physics of the Future book, a bestseller in the New York Times bestseller look. How you doing, sir? And good morning to you.
Very good.
So it's only 123 million, road trip today, right? 123 trillion miles
a hop,
away.
Skip, and a jump away. But
you say this is big and exciting news to astronomers.
This is big. This is really big. Astronomers have spent a lifetime chasing after the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail, an Earth-like twin in outer space. When you look at the constellation Libra, you'll wonder whether or not anyone is looking back at you from outer space.
So what are they seeing on this planet that they are so attracted to?
This planet may have a liquid ocean. If it was too close to the mother star, the ocean would turn to steam. If it was too far, the oceans would freeze. It's liquid water, we think, on that planet, and that's where life got off the ground. DNA, proteins, a mixing bowl of life is found in liquid water.
But right now, we cannot say whether or not there is a liquid ocean.
That's right. The next step beyond this now is to verify the fact that there is water on the planet, and the temperatures are just right to have water in liquid form, the universal solvent, the mixing bowl of life itself.
Do you see this picture on our screen right now? That's us to the left, right? And that's that, what is it, Jalise? How do you say it?
Yeah, Jalise 581G.
All right, now you told me it's relatively close because it's only 20 light years away. We can't prove it even if there is liquid oceans there, right?
Well, we can by using spectroscopy, that is looking at light from that planet, putting it through a prism, analyzing that light in a laboratory, and then we can detect the presence of water molecules. So we hope to do that and determine the atmosphere of that planet. So remember that this is the Holy Grail. People have spent a lifetime looking at it, and this could be that moment.
So next then is that you would take your best telescopes and train it toward that area of space to get more information.
Telescopes still can't see this planet because it's too dim. We look for the wobbling of the mother star, indicating that there's a solar system of planets surrounding that star. 6 planets, by the way, surrounding that mother star.
So it could be more at only 123 trillion miles. That would be a lot of gas.
Gas, right. It would take 300,000 years for the Saturn rocket to reach that planet.
All right, let us know what you find on that. Congratulations on the book. It's been a huge hit for you, and we'll see what happens with this one. Thank you.
300,000 years. If you take the long way around, if you take the shortcut way, it's much faster. It's a wormhole. Okay. Now, next thing we're going to do here is we're going to go to Stonehenge. Stonehenge pit's discovery suggests site was sacred for sun worship earlier than previously thought. Now, that's quite interesting. It says newly discovered evidence of 2 large pits at the east and west side of Stonehenge suggests that the area may have been recognized as a sacred site at a much earlier date than previously thought. Archaeologists with the University of Birmingham believe the holes could have been held stones, wooden posts, or fires to mark the sunrise and sunset for a processional route, used to celebrate the summer solstice before the well-known lagger stones were erected. The pits were found along the Surus pathway, two parallel line ditches with banks either side closed off at the end. According to the BBC, researchers also found a gap in the middle of the northern side of the Surus, indicating a possible entry point for processions. Very interesting indeed. Got the whole article here if you want to check it out. There's a couple of videos, actually one video down here talking about different unexplained phenomena, so it'd be worth your time to check it out. Alright, I have one last story, and this is from the Truther Girls, and if you haven't seen any of the Truther Girl videos, well, I think you're going to enjoy this one because they always bring good information and put a smile on your face because of the, well, she brings good humor to the situation. So, here we go. This is the Truther Girls.
Look, I've been waiting for this all my life. I've never seen anything like it. Look, it's my first UFO sighting. Oh my God, the sky's full of them. What is that? Look, now if that's not mysterious, I don't know what is. Mysterious lights in the sky. Ah, I never thought I'd live to see the day. I can't believe this. There's a UFO. UFO. Nobody's even looking at it. Look, everybody's just walking by. Nobody's paying attention to the fact that there's massive UFO sighting above, and everybody's just walking around, like not even noticing. They're just looking in the store windows, shopping as usual. Am I the only one who notices that we're being invaded by aliens? Yeah, they don't. They're oblivious. Nobody pays any attention. Chit-chatting away. Look at this. Dozens and dozens of aliens. Aliens, spaceships, or unidentified flying objects. We don't really know what they are. They're unidentified.
Maybe you don't know
flying. I don't know what it is. It could be the military. Look at this. Tell me that's not a UFO sighting. Look, it's beautiful. It's glorious. What is it? Is it some kind of a psyop? How come nobody's noticing? Excuse me, did you notice that there's like a fleet of aliens up above?
You know, I saw that in my house also.
What do you think it is? Am I crazy to think this is aliens?
I have no idea. I saw that before. I have no idea what it is.
You've seen it before?
Yeah.
Like maybe we've had aliens
Actually,
before.
no, yeah. I believe in that.
What do you think it is?
I don't know. It's people with lights.
Yeah, but what are they doing up in the sky?
No,
these
they're
people?
just shooting them up.
You mean they're not coming from the sky? They're coming from down here?
Yep. I don't believe that. I
Oh
think so.
man, I thought it. I was so happy. I saw my first sighting. I was like recording. I was going to tell all my friends on YouTube. I seen the sighting and like everybody's walking by. So what's going on?
Get on a mountain on a clear night.
Really? You're sure they're coming from down here?
I'm not quite sure. That's only my opinion. I'm only a guy.
Oh, you're a skeptic.
I've come in peace. But hey, did you want me to take a picture of you with the aliens?
No, I've got my video camera on.
Oh, okay. Can I say something?
Oh yeah, by all means.
So nice to see you.
Well, nice to meet you.
Peace.
Have a good night. Oh well, maybe he's right, but I still hold out hope that it could be the real thing.
Alright, very good. That was the Truther Girls. Alright. We got a lot of good videos at her site. If you go check it out, you can just follow the link from our page. Today's story. Okay, last but not least, let's do our meditation for today. Go ahead and close your eyes, relax. Alright, I want you to imagine yourself walking along a path. Walking along the path of life by yourself. And as you walk along the path of life, imagine first of all that all your chakras are activated. Starting with the chakra at the bottom of your spine. Just make sure that energy center is activated. Its color is red, and it draws the energy from the earth. And then the energy raises up higher to the chakra above it, which is at the belly button area, and the color is orange. And then raise the energy up higher to the chakra just below the rib cage, and the color is yellow. And this is the energy center that deals with your intellectual body. Raise the energy up higher to the heart chakra. Imagine the color green. This is the chakra of love. Raise the energy up to the throat chakra. Imagine the color blue. Raise the energy up from the throat chakra to the third eye, just between the two eyebrows. Imagine the color violet. And finally, send the chakra energy up to the crown, top of your head. Imagine the color indigo turning to bright white as it connects up with the cosmos. And now you are connected above and below. Take a moment to give thanks to life itself for providing you with the connection to life. Now listen carefully inside for the voice of Spirit speaking with you, the voice of God speaking with you. If you listen carefully, you will feel and know that voice to be there. And in this time when there are so many dark energies running through the world, it is important to be able to tune in inside and listen for the voice. And you will truly understand that there is a difference between that voice, the voice of the creative spirit of life, God, Great Spirit, Jesus, Divine Providence, whatever name you want to associate. You will notice there is a difference between the voice and the voices. The voices of doubt, the voices of fear, the voices that come from all the dark energies trying to bring and affect the earth. But by listening to that inner voice, you stay connected with the divine spirit that flows through all of us. And as you are connected and listening to that voice, you understand how we all are part of God's plan, God's design. Now, let's imagine us walking along, and we want to focus on what's ahead at the end of this path. And the end of this path goes to this week. That way we take short little spurts from week to week to week. Imagine what it is you want to accomplish the rest of this week. What it is you're trying to complete in your life. Maybe it's a project that you started and you need to finish. Maybe it's a communication you need to have with somebody. Just imagine yourself completing in your life what it is you wish to complete for this week. Imagine yourself on this weekend, at Saturday, having accomplished what it is you want to accomplish for the week. And imagine how you feel. And now bring yourself backwards in time to this very moment. And know that just by having thought about what it is you want to do, you've already set that path in motion. And you are just going to catch up with the energetic thought you already placed out there into the world. Let's just imagine sending love and light to everyone around the planet. Wishing everybody a good day, a good, happy, peaceful day. And with that, let's bring our energy and attention back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with absolute confidence. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. All right, that's it. Prayer, meditation, show, check. Appreciate you being here. Thanks for listening to the show. It's always a pleasure receiving your emails, your comments. I enjoy those as well. You know, a lot of craziness going on. If you're in the various cities, just pay attention. They're trying to crack down on what's going on with people stepping up and speaking their truths and speaking freedom. But this is a time for people to step up. That's what this time is. This 2012 time that we're going into, it's about change, revolution. Doesn't have to be a bloody, violent revolution. It can be peaceful. And that is what the hope is. And with a peaceful mind, a peaceful attitude, the whole world can change into a peaceful place. For Dirk Bradshaw, my name's Josh Poet. Peace. I'll see you tomorrow.